Awesome. Okay, so the beginning of the end. So here we go. Chart Season 9. They title it very aptly. They do a great job of it. But it's just so insane. Okay, so we get this new character. He's kind of this guy in the middle. He kind of looks like this big. He's got like horns on his head. He's got this like bell collar. Just like this big, like beefy guy. He's kind of like a goat. I don't know. And his name's Grogar, and we're gonna see a lot of him this season. And what Grogar decides to do is kind of like sort of steal all of like the biggest villains in the world from that prison. Remember, like last episode, they opened up the doors to Tartarus, and so like he basically just like stole all of them from the prison. And so he's got Cozy Glow and Boy T-Rex, yeah, and then it's just Chrysalis and Sombra. And basically his idea is he's gonna take Cozy Glow, and take Sombra, T-Rex, Chrysalis, bring them all together in a mastermind, right, in this big group. And then as a group, they'll all be able to form relationships, form bonds, and be strong enough to, overcome, the Twilight or Friends, the main six, and, Camelot, and Princess Celestia, Luna, and, just like, take over the whole world, right? That's the goal. That's his strategy. And so, like, the way he wants to do it is by bringing them together into a team, a very powerful team. Because remember, like, this idea of a mastermind, this idea of working together, like this works not just for like good things, that you can use it for really dangerous bad stuff if you have sort of the wrong perspective with it, or if you're using it in the wrong way. And so it's so crucial that as you form your masterminds, or as you form your groups, as you form your teams, like you do it in a positive way with positivity instead of negative aspirations. Taking over the world or killing everyone, like it's not really that great, But that's what these guys are into, and that's what Grogar wants to do. He wants to take over the world with them. And so he brings them all together in this one place, and basically has like this big magic ball thing that he uses, and he gets like a ton of power from it, a ton of energy. And at the beginning, like these guys, they aren't used to working together, right? And so at the beginning, they start to push away from each other, and they even push away from Grogar. And basically they start fighting, and they start pushing each other around, and they're basically just out of control at the beginning because they just escaped jail and they just want to go and like take over the world. And what Grogar does is he like uses his magic. He's got like this magic ball, and he's like really powerful. And he like pushes them all against the wall and forces them against this wall, and like basically like uses magic to just like handcuff them, like shove them, like they can't move, right? They're trapped against this wall. All of them are. And so what he's doing is he sort of like forces them into submission, right? He brings them into this state where like they are either they're going to listen to Grogar or they're just going to sit there all day trapped against a wall. And so they have no choice but to listen. And so it's not an effective way to lead, right? It's the idea that, if you have to force people to follow, if you have to force people to listen to you, force people to believe in you, like you're not going to be a very effective leader. And so, he forces everyone against the wall and says, look, you've got to listen to me or I will, destroy you because I'm so powerful. And basically they say, they subdue, at least temporarily, if you use force, temporarily it'll work, you'll have the effect that you want. And he gets these guys to basically just listen to him, which, it's not the best way to have success, but for him, in the short term at least, it's going to work. But what it does, and we'll sort of see this develop, throughout this season, is it sort of instills this idea that, they aren't a big fan of him. They don't have a quality relationship with him, and they come together as a group, but not so much with him. So we'll see how that develops over time. But the important thing to know here is that Sombra, like, he doesn't want to deal with this crap. And he pretty much thinks that he's the most powerful guy in the whole world, because he's like they're all pretty powerful. They're huge, right? And so they've all sort of been villains, but enemies throughout the entire series. And now it's just coming to this end point. And Sombra basically says that he's going to split away from everybody and go off on his own. He doesn't need anybody's help, and he'll take over the world, and it's not a problem. And so we have this idea here of, one person versus the collective group. And the collective group is almost always significantly stronger than the individual, which is just, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, they're stronger together. But he thinks, Sombra thinks that on his own, he's strong enough to go and take over the world all by himself. And so that's sort of what happens here early on. Grogar says, look, if you want to go try to do it on your own, go ahead, because it won't work. And these guys kind of understand that because literally everybody here has been defeated by the main six, and so he just he's super confident, and he's going to go and try to do it again, right? So that's sort of how this premiere works out, right? So these guys kind of go out of the picture, and they're just chilling out together, sticking together as a team, and just trying to figure out, how they're going to take over the world or something. And that's pretty much what happens with them, and with Grogar, he just sticks with them. But then you have Sombra, and he goes, and he wants to do it, on his own. So he sort of goes, and he tries to do it a little bit differently, right? Because, the first time he failed. And so if you fail the first time, you have to sort of change your strategy, change your positioning, or just try it in a new way. And that's kind of exactly what he does. So he goes over to the Crystal Empire, right? Because that's sort of where, he's used to. And he gets to Crystal Empire and just starts taking over people. There's smoke everywhere, all this somber stuff. And he gets to like the middle of the empire, this huge castle, right? And he has to sort of change his approach, because the first time he just tried to like take over, it just didn't work, right? Because they've got guards, they've got shiny armor, cadence, and they'll try to, basically crush him, right? And then also, Twilight Main 6 over here. And like everyone knows that like he could be crushed. And so he has to sort of plan it a little bit differently. And what's interesting about this attack, what's interesting about this ambush, what's interesting about, Sombra here trying to crush everyone, is that at the same time that this is happening, you got Twilight over here with, Celestia and Luna, and basically, like, the same time this is going on, you've got Celestia and Luna saying that they want to retire, and that they're going to leave the throne, and that they want, Twilight to come and be the new leader of the world, right? And this is so powerful, and you have two completely separate parallels here, but like, it's huge, because what you've got here, right here, is like the student passing the teacher, you're getting past the teacher, doing more than they were doing, right? And so now if you take a step back and look at it, on one side of it, you've got Twilight going to this whole new height, this whole new achievement in her career that started out so much further down, because she's gone to the effort, she's gone to the work, she's gone to the time to actually go learn and do this, right? And have this achievement. And at the same time this is happening, now she has to go over here and deal with this crap, right? And it's tough for her because, it's kind of difficult to go and just start leading the entire world. And that's a pretty huge leadership position, a big ask for her. And so, like, this chance right here is a great way to validate her authority and validate her power and validate her positioning, because it allows her and, the main 6, right, the mastermind, to come in and go on this adventure, go on this voyage, and have the success that they might not have, if they didn't fight through this, right, it wouldn't really put on the confidence. So sometimes, if you want to build up your confidence, because she was a little bit scared of, leading the world, and the only way that confidence comes, right, is by working with the team to achieve this goal. And so a lot of times, if you want to increase your confidence, if you want to pump up your action, you want to increase the ability that you have to deliver more value to others, like one of the most foundational ways to do that is really to just go through a process, to go towards an achievement, because for them, like, this is an achievement, right? They have to defeat this enemy. And so just a cool little, like, and sort of we'll see how that develops in just a minute. So Sombra comes in, he realizes, like, he has to do a new thing, right? He can't just, like, barge in and try to take over everything. And so he targets what? Like, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And so he tries to figure out, okay, well, what's the weakest link? And he sees the crystal heart, and he knows that he can snag the crystal heart, but at the same time, he realizes that probably his best course of action is to find Flurry Heart, right? And then if he can capture Flurry Heart, then everyone else will subside. And so that's pretty much, exactly what he does. He bounces into the castle, kills a bunch of guards, and Shiny Armor and Cadence totally just chill out in the throne room and forget about Flurry Heart, which is just ridiculous. And then they go to get Flurry Heart, so they're like, oh crap, we forgot our kid. And Sombra's basically taken Flurry Heart, and he forces them to subdue, and he takes over the entire Crystal Empire. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how that starts off. So since he takes over the whole empire, he has everyone as like slaves now, they're like zombies, and he can just kind of like control basically everybody. And so these guys don't really like get here in time, and so they have to go and like try to figure out how to defeat him, right? So after he does this, he says, okay, cool, I took over the Crystal Empire, let's go to Canterlot. And he goes and he just comes over to Canterlot. He comes to the royal throne room. But he finds that the princesses, like, they just kind of, like, left. Because they wanted to let Twilight and friends deal with it so they could show their power, so they could, have the confidence to go and rule the land. And so he gets in here, he just, like, takes over the throne, chills out. And then Twilight comes with the main 6, everyone comes in. And basically, in, like, 15 or 20 seconds, they all just come together and use the Elements of Harmony, use their power to, like, launch a giant laser beam and just kill them. That's kind of how the first part ends, is he takes over this empire, but then they just like shoot him in the face and he dies. So yeah, kind of pretty intense stuff there, and that's how the first part ends. But then we get, and then you can kind of see right here, like this is them like right before they shoot a giant laser beam in his face and kill him, which is pretty intense. So yeah, they do a good job. I mean, they just like come in and just like shoot him in the face. But then kind of like a little bit of a challenge happens. So that's the end of the first part, right? And then you have, the second part. And so like at the beginning of the second part, basically he comes back and like, not at the Crystal Empire anymore. It's back in Canada, back in Ponyville. And like he basically just kind of pretended to die here. So he didn't like actually die, which is kind of like sneaky. And like after he pretended to die, the main six, like they went back to like the Tree of Harmony, right? So they came to the Tree of Harmony to put away, the elements, since that's sort of where they go when they're not using them. And Sombra basically just like followed them there. And so as soon as they get here, he just uses like his powers to shoot like these giant rocks, like straight through the tree. And so he just kind of like destroys the tree. He just destroys the tree, and there's like destroys the elements inside of the tree too. So like everything's gone, and like just crushes all their sources of power, which is like pretty intense. And then he's like, ha ha ha, I tricked you. And now that the tree's gone, there's also nothing to like hold the Everfree Forest in from Ponyville, right? So remember, you got this is like a whole Everfree Forest around the tree, and it's being held back by the power of the tree. And now that the tree's been destroyed, you've got Ponyville, and the entire town is basically just going to get invaded by the forest. And so that's sort of what you see here in this next scene. It's just total, complete chaos everywhere, out of control stuff, which is like it's pretty harsh. And it all kind of comes from him sort of thinking a little bit more strategically about his attack and about his approach, and trying to do it in a better way, because he knew, in the past, like it didn't work out. He didn't have the success he wanted previously. So if you don't have the success you want previously, like all you have to do is change your actions, and then you change your results, right? And so that's exactly what he does here. Is he changes his strategy, changes his approach, and he has some pretty nice success. So basically, like the forest invades, and like everyone in the town turns into big zombies, and Sombra takes over like the town, and the main six are like, crap, we gotta do something about this. But they're struggling because like they don't have like their main source of power anymore, right? They don't have what they're super accustomed to, which are the elements of harmony. And then what else Sombra does? They go back into the town, and basically like he just like traps them in this huge like cage, and it's like a magic-proof cage. He just traps them in this cage, and they're like can't get out, and they're like, crap, what were they supposed to do? And at the beginning they're having a challenge. The beginning is tough because like everything's falling apart in front of them. But they have like, what do they have? They have each other, and they have a burning desire, a burning passion, a burning drive to escape, to be more, to do more, and to achieve, and to get out of this situation. And so out of pure persistence, out of raw internal drive, Twilight starts just digging in the ground, trying to dig underneath the cage that they can't, destroy. And solely for the purpose of pushing through this challenge, she just starts digging. And her friends see this, right? And it's so powerful, because the group is stronger than the individual, right? All of her friends see her doing this, and they start to help her. They start to dig with her, right? They dig and they dig and they dig and they dig. As a team, as a unit, as a, together, they make it happen. They dig and 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 they dig out of the cage, right? They do it together. And the only reason these guys started digging is because Twilight had the confidence, the courage, and the passion and the purpose to just freaking start digging. And then as she started going through this plan, her friends joined her, right? They came together as a troop, and they made it happen. You can kind of see, like, now that they've escaped, they can go and try to clear their next problem, right? Or attack their next challenge as a team, which is so huge. And so they get out, and like they just have to fight through, everyone that's in the town, and then they turn into zombie. They have to fight the whole forest. I mean, there's just a lot of crazy stuff. But what's cool is like Luna and Celestia, they, very rarely in the series have they ever really come to do anything, real, actively. they actually fly in and then they say, hey, we'll hold back the force with our magic. You go to Camelot where Sombra was, and you destroy Sombra, right? You defeat him. And so that's exactly what they do. So these guys come, and what they do is they leverage the power of the relationships they built. They leverage the power of the connections they have with Celestia and Luna, and their ability to come and fight the Force. And they also fight the Force with Starscroll the Bearded, who believes wholeheartedly in this group. Because they had these connections, because they had these relationships, in times of trouble, their friends came to help them, to support them, and to do the grunt work so that they could go and do what they were best at, which was actually going to fight, Sombra. And so that's so huge, so key, because it's so important to understand that you can rely on those that you care about. You can rely on your friends in these times of danger to come and support you and do more for you and to help you so that you can focus on your unique ability, which is it's just huge, right? And so they get to the throne room, and basically Sombra's in the throne room, and he just thinks this is the funniest thing ever, because basically, he destroyed, what he thought was all their magic, right? And it's really interesting because you see this concept in the movies, which you guys, you'll get to in the bonus segments, but this is so huge. They're sitting here in the throne room, and they're like, crap, we don't have any magic, we don't have any power, we don't have any persistence, what are we going to do? And then Discord comes in. And, as Discord comes in, he realizes that, he could just defeat Sombra, right? But if he did that, he wouldn't give the main six the confidence that they need to lead well, right? And so he wants to do what's best for his friends. He wants to do what's best for the group. And so as Sombra is launching this deathly ray of magic, just this huge laser beam at them, he jumps in and takes the hit and just kind of pretends to be mortally wounded after he took this huge hit. And he's lying on the ground, coughing, pretending to be dying, and he says to the main six, you guys have to power through. The power is not in the elements, the power is in you, the power is in the group, the power is in, the unit. It's not just the necklace areas or the rocks or whatever, or the tree. It's about the group, right? It's about the group, and it's about the relationships more than anything else. That's the most important factor. The bonds and the connections are stronger than any other physical, worldly thing that you could have, right? And so that just pushes them to that next level and really gives them the inspiration to do and to be and to achieve. Come together, do the whole flying thing again, and they just slam on this guy. And he tries to fight back, but he just can't do it. Because it's literally one guy versus 6 people. The group is more powerful than this guy could ever even dream to be. And that's just exactly what happens here. Is they just crush him, they destroy him with the motivation, and it's just so powerful. She, Twilight, she has to admit that she made a mistake, and that, what, we didn't do it the right way the first time. We should have been more effective. We should have been more careful. But that's okay. We're gonna push forward. We're gonna move through. We're gonna go to that next level and have that achievement and crush this guy. That's exactly what they do, and it's so powerful. Such an amazing use of the power of the group, which is huge. And then, after that, pretty much Grogar sort of has control over everyone else. So Chrysalis, Tirek, and Cozy Glow, they all sort of just listen to Grogar from this point forward, because they know that they aren't really going to be able to succeed on their own, and their best chances are with each other as a team, right? Because the team, it's just so much more powerful, which is awesome. So let's go to Uprooted. This one's so fun. Okay, so the tree got destroyed, which kind of sucks. But the little six, right? They decide that for their school project or whatever, they're out of school, doesn't matter. They're gonna come over to this cave, and they have there's all these remains of this tree, right? That just got smashed into smithereens by Sombra. And they come up, and basically their goal is to sort of make a memorial or a statue or a little burial ground for the tree, so that it looks kind of nice instead of just looking like a huge destruction zone, like a bomb just went off. That's basically what happened. And so what's interesting is they come here to sort of put together a memorial, and they all have different ideas on where the project should go. And so even though they're all connected, right, they're all friends, they all have sort of different visions for how it should look. Some of them want it to be a little more artsy, Sandbar just wants to make like a little pyramid thing. And all of them sort of have their own perspective just because of their background, right? So remember this concept that everybody has sort of the views that they have because of their background. So like everybody here has a different background and we bring them from a different place, right? And so since they all have different backgrounds, they all have sort of different artistic visions. Like Yona really, really wants to make it like super artsy and paintsy. And some of them want to make it super, super colorful. And then other ones, you know, Silvertree just wants to make it kind of relaxed and chill. It just all depends on their background. And that's why, like, you know, with art specifically, like it's basically just an expression of history, right? An expression of background, an expression of personality. And so because of that, they all have extremely different views on like how this tree should look or how their memorial for the tree should look. And instead of taking like the 15 minutes it would take to come together and make an organized plan, which is what you should do, they sort of go about it the wrong way. And all of them basically just go on their own path and try to start making their own little versions of the tree or their own versions of the memorial. And they just do their own thing without actually consulting the group. And they separate themselves from each other. So even though they have these bonds, they have these relationships, they have these connections, it is very, very strong feelings for one another, they sort of just ignore those and they go and they do their own thing without really consulting the group or working together. And because of that, they basically have a huge mess because like they go off and they start doing their own thing. And if you do your own thing without actually thinking about what other people are doing, right? Like imagine if you started working on a group project without actually asking anyone else what the heck they thought they should do, if they thought the group should do, what they think would be a great thing to work on. Like, it's not going to turn out particularly well. You have to have unison, you have to have synchronization, you have to have everybody on the same page to get to that next level of success, right? That's just the core foundation of any sort of work. And so they make this huge mess. I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, there's like paint everywhere. Everyone's knocking each other's things over. There's just total disharmony everywhere. It's just this big mess. And, you know, they're sitting there together and they're like, crap. You know, after like, you know, a couple of hours, maybe a day of working, they basically have nothing to show for it because they've been working on their own thing without working together, which is just like, it's not gonna work. Like you can have different styles, right? You can have different perspectives and you can have different viewpoints come together into a singular project, but it only happens when everybody comes, they decide that, look, they are gonna work on that one thing together, right? And if they don't do that, you're just gonna have this huge mess. And so basically after they have this big mess, they realize that, look, they need to acknowledge each other's past, they need to understand where they're coming from, but most importantly, like they need to work together. If they don't work together, they're just gonna keep making a giant mess. And so they come together and they say, look, we're gonna tear down, you know, these walls, we're gonna get rid of this crap, and we're gonna make this happen as a team, as a group. And even though we might, you know, individually not get 100% exactly what we want, if we can just put together something that collectively we can work towards, something we can put together as a team, maybe get a good chunk of what we want. Like we can each have individual aspects of this final thing. So this final thing, it can have, you know, individual aspects from everybody that, you know, participates in making it, that it makes it unique to them, right? It has sort of their unique flair, and that works out really well. But it all comes together into one singular thing, right? Like this idea of working, you know, a mile wide versus a mile deep. Like a mile deep, you drill a mile deep, it's gonna be a lot more effective than trying to drill it an inch down for a mile. It's just not gonna work. And so these guys, they need to stop trying to spread their efforts out, and instead they need to come together, get rid of this, right? Get rid of, you know, all these individual projects that aren't important. And after they get rid of all these individual projects, what do they need to do? They need to be a team, right? And then they need to build one singular project. And so they come together and they basically build like this big tree house thing. And it's not like the most beautiful tree house ever, but like it's pretty solid and it has everybody's unique, you know, little touches in it, right? So there's like different little aspects. Some people build, you know, little paintings, little porches, doesn't matter. But they build this one singular tree house, and after they build that one tree house, they step back, they take a look at it, and they think it's amazing, right? It's beautiful because everyone put everything they had into it. It all came together really well. It was beautiful because they worked on one thing together, and as soon as they had that one thing, done, they had a really, really, really great end product, which is just like, so powerful. This book called The One Thing, and it's like all about this concept of working on one thing. Because when you work on one thing, like you get so much more done, and you can build a really, really, really great tower versus trying to build like little tiny townhouses next to each other. It's so much more powerful to get that one thing done. And as soon as they finish building it, what's cool is like the Tree of Harmony still apparently has some magic in it, and it basically turns their little tree house into like this giant castle, which is like pretty sweet. It's just like this huge. It just turns into this massive castle, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, I mean it just kind of happens like pretty quickly. But then they have this giant castle, and they have that reward, right? They have this payoff in the end. Because they work together, like this giant castle would never appear if they kept trying to do it on their own. It only happens, you only have success, you only reach the end goal, you only have the biggest impact when you work together on one thing. That's the core, right? That's the basis for any kind of project, like personally or professionally. Like it all comes from just working together on sort of that one thing, and then just going until you actually achieve, which is like huge.